Welcome back, everyone. We are Simply Bitcoin. We break down the news, the daily fail, meme review, software releases, hardware releases, and the pleb sites. All right, Nico, we are diving into the numbers. Let's take a look at it.
Number time! Number time is brought to you by Nodl. They make some of the best Bitcoin nodes, like the Nodl Dojo, the one I'm holding in my hand. It's in red. That means it's faster. Run your own version of Bitcoin Core and the Lightning Network, all in the comfort of your home. Remember, guys, if you don't run your own node, you are trusting someone else's. That's a big no-no for privacy. So run your own node like the Nodl today.
At the time of this recording, the block height is 734,911. The Bitcoin price, 39,890. Chain rewrite days, 679. Total public lightning capacity, 3,714.55. Moscow time, 25:07. Blocks to the halvening, 105,089. And the Samurai Whirlpool unspent capacity. Samurai Whirlpool is a CoinJoin or collaborative spend. It is not a mixing service. And the unspent capacity for that pool is 4,552.27. Nico, the numbers. And before we move on, right? We gotta go take a look at our Satoshi USD converter, right? To give everybody what the cost of 1,000,000 Satoshis is right now. It is $397 USD for 1,000,000 sats.
1,000,000 sats for $390. That's still cheap in my opinion. In a couple of years, we'll be saying that's in the thousands. That's right, I said it. But anyways, Phil, check this out. Like, dude. Oh man, let me pull it up and then we can talk about it. Like we've been saying,
the fail segment is the next segment, right?
I know. Nico is failing already. No, but look, like we've been saying, we've been reporting on this for quite a while now, right? Bitcoin consciousness is going mainstream, right? We had Sailor on Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson is the second most popular talk show host in America. And Joe Rogan, which is the most famous broadcaster in the world. And he said this recently when a guest of his said that he was orange pilled at the Bitcoin conference, right? Again, this is Bitcoin seeping into mainstream. Keep in mind, this is Bitcoin. This is not crypto. This is Bitcoin. Anyways, let's check out what the most famous, most popular podcaster in the world had to say about Bitcoin.
Exactly. I think of Bitcoin the same way I think about the early internet. I think they didn't see it coming, and now it's a viable form of currency. You can actually buy things with it, and I think the government is freaking out. I think what they're going to try to do is they tried to do some shit with the internet during the Obama administration where they were going to try to censor the internet, and it fell apart because people were furious in the uproar, and they thought the political repercussions of it were not worth it. Like the juice wasn't worth the squeeze, so they backed off of it. But I feel that there's going to come a time where some government, whether it's the United States or another government might try it first, they're going to try to implement, I know they already do it in China, but they're going to try to implement a digital currency, a centralized digital currency that they can control.
Yeah.
What's scary about that is they could say, Khalil, we've looked at, your behavior online, and you have some marks against you, and so you're not going to be able to buy this, or you can only buy staples. You can't, you can buy food and shelter, but we're not going to allow you to travel, because that could be a real thing where they could literally limit what you spend your money on.
1,000%, Joe.
Has Joe been watching Simply Bitcoin? Because this is what we've been saying for a couple months now, but absolutely crazy. Keep in mind, Joe Rogan's average viewership per episode is 11 million people. Just heard that, and Joe Rogan warned them about the dangers of central bank digital currency, and he highlighted the fact that governments are having titty attacks, and that's what we've been pointing out. They're in the bargaining phase right now, and remember that the power that governments have over their populace is essentially being able to control people through monetary policy. And Bitcoin is a direct threat to that because people opt out. And they opt out into a better money, meaning they're incentivized to stay in Bitcoin. And only through coercion, right, is how they'll get people to use their central bank digital currency shitcoins, right? Only through banning, only through violence, only through this. I don't think it's going to work. I think incentives are much more powerful than coercion. But that doesn't mean that these people are not going to try. Phil, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so, right, we've got Joe Rogan on one side explaining how Bitcoin is like the internet, which we have said in the past. And then let's take a look at the other side of that coin. We've had people like Paul Krugman that said the internet wouldn't have a bigger impact than the fax machine. Okay, so we need to take these kind of comments into perspective. I know that they happened at different times, but what we have to see here is the relationship. We see a very strong push from the established media, from the establishment against Bitcoin, because as we've said, it separates money from state. This is, like you said, it's freaking them out. Okay, they've really got nowhere else to go. And this digital currency, right? The idea of a digital. So actually, before I talk about the digital currency, I just want to mention when I find when legacy media or corporate owned media puts out these narratives, it's not necessarily that they believe in them. Like I'm talking about, for example, the one I mentioned about Paul Krugman making the comment about the internet, because if it can get a movement behind it, and then people start to cheer for it and create all kinds of data around it to prove its point, all of a sudden you have this problem that now has to be solved, which now, kind of slows adoption. So think about what we deal with the corporate owned media and the narratives that constantly come out, the ESG FUD attacks. Oh, it's used for illicit. This is all done to just put sticks in the spokes while you're riding the bike. To constantly trip you up. Oh, here's another thing we have to go fight. Oh, here's another thing. But as we are doing this, right, as we are constantly battling one narrative after another, you've got China putting together this ridiculous digital currency prison, okay, which, don't get me wrong, looks absolutely wonderful to other governments that are quickly seeing the possibility of separation of money and state. So this looks good. And Joe's point, I mean, don't get me wrong, it sounds crazy, right? Oh, yeah, they'll never just ban me from traveling. I wouldn't end up in a situation where I can just buy, where I could just buy goods that I need. Don't tempt them, right? Like, you shouldn't tempt them, because if you think about it, we already have, you can't technically use your card anywhere. It already gets flagged sometimes, and even if it's not suspicious activity, it's out of normal activity. You'll get something from the bank saying, "Hey, look, was this you?" We're coming to a point where they're not going to ask you the question. They're just going to make that decision for you. You're just not buying this.
No, dude.
So,
you're absolutely right, man. And I think it caught them flat-footed, right? And they reacted to the internet the same way. The famous, unironically, the crypto wars of the 90s. Adam Back mentioned it when he came on the show. And essentially what that was about is they tried to ban encryption, right? Because they wanted access to the internet. They haven't been successful at that, right? They haven't been able to get the popular support to justify banning encryption completely, right? But that doesn't mean that a lot of these government agencies aren't going to try to demonize Bitcoin all the same. Remember, these politicians and the power that they have comes from the money printer. It comes from the fact that, hey, you want to negotiate with the United States of America, Ukraine, you want $33 billion that we will print for you? You're going to have to play by our rules, right? That's a tremendous amount of leverage. That's a tremendous amount of power. And Bitcoin is essentially, that's not going to work. So they're going to fight it tooth and nail. And I think Joe Rogan has the foresight to see that. But anyways, Phil, it's time for
The Daily Fail. Brought to you by swan.com. Check them out, swanbitcoin.com or swan.com. They have both domains. Anyways, this is a Bitcoin stacking app by fellow plebs. They create amazing educational material But you can also stack sats with an automated Bitcoin savings plan, instant purchases, and soon they've got an app coming out. The link is down below. No, you're not having a memory problem. Okay, we did look at this tweet yesterday, but we had to start it off again because there was a follow-up. There was, believe it or not, there was some progression because, as the shitcoiners are building the future of money, there was a slight stumbling block. Anyways, right? We remember this tweet. Solana co-founder Anatoly Yakovenko says that eventually if Bitcoin doesn't move to proof of stake, nobody will use it. Okay, great. We remember that. We were tagged today by Dotcoin. Shout out to you, bud. You always tag me in some good stuff. Here we go. It's a tweet by @CanGirl. Magic Eden founder begging Solana validators not to block their contracts. That's right, people. This is the future of money that the VCs would like us all to be a part of. So here we go. This could be you, right? Our marketplace contract is whatever that is, that string. There is a low spam on this program compared to the NFT minting programs, so we request that you do not block it. That's right. I mean, don't get me wrong, but how can you even claim decentralization? How can you even claim that this can possibly become a functioning currency? I mean, this stuff is barely off the ground. They were pretending to be mainnet until they went down again last week and then reverted back to being a beta. And now you're blocking transactions. Okay, anyways, before we move on to the big part of this fail, you have any comments on Solana?
Dude, what I've always been saying, and I'm going to keep reiterating this point. Listen, Phil, let me tell you something, bro. We're reporting stuff, and 2 or 3 months later, Tucker Carlson covers it. We've been reporting stuff, and 6 months later, Joe Rogan fucking covered it, man. That is the power of pleb signal, bro. Okay, so give ourselves a little toot. But listen, I'm gonna say it again. Okay, and you'll hear it from Tucker or Joe, maybe, possibly. I don't know. If someone could block it, a government could block it for political purposes. Stop. That's it. That's the point I'm trying to make, right? So, yeah, man, if you want a better future, what Corey always says, a bright orange future, you need apolitical money. You need money that is secular. You need money that doesn't care what your ideology is, where you're from, what country you are. Can't ban you. And only Bitcoin could deliver that because it is the only cryptocurrency that's sufficiently decentralized. And I think the public, I might add, is starting, we're at like 5%, is starting to understand what it is I'm saying. Ever so slowly. Anyways.
Very well said. All right, here we go. Let's dive into this. This was actually a request from Hodling Eric. That's right. We are going to cover some influencer garbage today. So this is a it's a two-part tweet thread. That's not good. Anyways, by zachXBT. Okay, and we've covered some of his material before. He does some really good diving, and the influencer that we're covering is Scott Melker, who has over 400,000 follows on Twitter. Does the Wolf of All Streets account. Shills a whole bunch of trading and education and financial advice. Look, we dismantled a lot of stuff with BitBoy and everything like that, and we showed what these influencers were charging. Now, look, there's different types of influencers, right, that do all different kinds of stuff. In his case, he has like a whole little ecosystem that he creates, and what zachXBT put together last year, which we're going to show parts of, essentially, it's just giant pump and dump schemes. And we're just going to go through that a little bit, and there's a follow-up to it from most recently from last week, which we're going to take a look at as well. So here we go. Let's dive into it from zachXBT. So here we go. Welcome to Shill Team 6. Scott Melker. First, let's kick it off with scottmelker.eth. Okay, and that's his address. Okay, so let's take a look at case 1, KYL shitcoin. Okay, now look. We're not going to dive into all of the different addresses and where they went. Like, I don't really care, okay? Like, he's obviously just doing this for proof. What matters to us is the constant theme that shows over and over again, right? Nico, you may have to blow these up to make them bigger. Okay, here we go. KYL Giga Chad price action on Kylan in full price discovery with massive green candle. There you go. There's the shill tweet. And the shill tweet took place on March 17th, 2021. And let's go take a look at what happened to that chart. And there you go. There's the shill tweet. And down goes the action. Okay, there we go. So we've got that first example back from 2021. Now let's take a look at Mint. Same pattern. Puts out the shill tweet. You know, Mint pulling the same pattern that we saw with KYL. So what's that pattern? The pump and dump pattern. And then, here we go. We can see right here, date of the tweet and your price action. Keep in mind, people are paying for this service. Now, granted, you know, we don't know when he shilled these shitcoins to his paying audience, but the pattern is clear. Let's take a look at another one. This is TVK, and again, it's the same thing. Here's the Wolf Den newsletter, just hit inboxes, lots of news, and let's go take a look at what happened with that. Okay, same exact type of pattern. So, and you guys can see that this is all throughout 2021. All right, so now let's fast forward. That was the first time zachXBT exposed Scott Melker. And look, the reason why we go through this stuff is because it's very important to understand nobody is better than their incentives. Nico's not better than his incentives. I'm not. This guy Scott Melker isn't. And this is why, this is one of the reasons that we have to go through this, because Nico and I are fully in Bitcoin. This is what we do. And you can see that our incentives align with Bitcoin because this is what we talk about. And we try to be as objective about it, still in our echo chamber, you know, but we do try to give people the realistic view of Bitcoin versus the fiat world. Right? I think that's the best way that I can put it. All right, so let's continue here with Zach. We're going to fast forward to 2 days ago's tweet, May 2nd. Okay, here we go. zachXBT. It's been almost a year now since my first thread on Scott Melker when he got exposed for dumping tokens on his audience after tweets. Well, new information has finally appeared. So let's dive in. Roughly 40 days ago, Scott migrated all his holdings from 0x94, his old address, to 0x67. In that process, however, this exposed his other alt wallets as well. At the same time, denied he dumped on his audience. So this is what happened, right? zachXBT was following this trail, not necessarily able to put the pieces together until Zach Melker started to move the money around. Anyways, oh gosh, this is absolutely brutal. Okay, so here we go. Here is another case, a more recent case. Pokemon 31. Here we go. 331. March 31st. 8,000 Pmon for private sale allocation. 4-1 begins dumping 250 of them. Makes a tweet, finishes selling for 130K total. And we can see here, again, this is a year later. Boom, here's your tweet, the same format as a year ago. And there's your coin. There you go. This is what you bought. It's absolutely brutal. Okay, case number 2. Option room. Same exact play as last year. Again, short story. Boom, trading room open, pumped to $3. Pre-sale allocations went out. There you go. He lets people know. Dumped at 139 as people took profit. He bought some at 150. Okay. He's letting you know he has inside, and you have to be very careful with this because, look, this is something that I learned. Anybody who tells you that they are the sole proprietors of specialized knowledge is most certainly lying to you, okay? There is no sole proprietor of specialized knowledge. That's not how this works. Anyways, and here's your shitcoin again, which he deleted these tweets. And you could actually see here, right, going back to the previous tweet about Room, Scott Melker deleted the tweet after 3 months. So you've got deleted tweets, you've got reoccurring pump and dump schemes, okay? This is really nasty stuff. Okay, so look, we're not going to continue going through more of these, but I wanted to dive down into the comment because it's all the same. I mean, no joke. It's one shitcoin pump and dump after another. Look, we're up to 8 cases already. Okay, well, in the end, zachXBT got blocked from Scott Melker. Guys, look, the point of this is that this is just a pump and dump scammer. We just showed you threads beyond the shadow of a doubt that can clearly show you the marketing, the pitch, the dump. Okay? These guys come in, these people come in all flavors, right? There's all different types of scammers. All different types. There's some people that'll just put out, random tweets saying they love a project. And it creates a buzz and it creates activity and they get paid per tweet in that case. In some other cases, there's the type of scammers that hold giant bags of this garbage and they do what Scott Melker just did. They create a buzz, they put out a certain amount of tweets or tweets at a specific time and they dump their bags based on the people wanting in on this new project. People, none of this is going to be money. These are private corporations. These are tokens that will never accrue any value, and the value that they may accrue can easily be taken by the government because they have a metaphorical head that you can chop off. So just stick to Bitcoin, stay away from the scams. Nobody selling you specialized knowledge is the only one that has access to it. They are lying to you to steal your money.
Dude, it's just it's the typical, example, right, of a lot of these large, and I know how difficult it is to make content, so I'm not going to bash him in that sense, but he accumulates a platform, and look, whether you like it or not, when you accumulate a power, when you accumulate a following, you have a responsibility, because a lot of people, especially when you're getting into the space, a lot of people will automatically put more trust and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know, because of the fact that you have such a following, right? They'll make assumptions about what you do, and clearly he used his platform. If all what that guy in that thread turned out to be true, which I don't think it would be false, someone would have called him out by now. But it's a shame. Does it surprise me? Absolutely not. He's been in the space long enough, and he's still peddling shitcoins. There's a reason for that, right? And we always said, right, our channel would be much bigger, and we'd be making a lot more money if we decided to take that route, right? These shitcoins are very well funded. I've shown you guys of emails that have gotten from Solana themselves saying, "Hey, do you want a partnership with BitVault?" They don't care. They want the brand association. We've shown you examples with celebrities. But the worst part about Scott, if that thread is true, is the fact that he knows better. Okay, this isn't a celebrity that's like, "Oh, NFT, I've heard about that. Yeah, I'll take a paycheck and promote it. Why not?" Like, they don't know anything about crypto, about Bitcoin. So it's like you could make the argument that those people just don't know any better. And I'm sure there's a bunch of them that really don't know any better. But in his case, what makes it really, really disheartening to me, but we've been in this long enough, Phil, that this does not surprise me in the slightest, is the fact that he knows better. He knows that he's actively hurting people for his own benefit. And it's kind of messed up. But you know what? To each their own. This is why you should have no heroes in Bitcoin. Don't trust. Verify everything. Don't trust us. Verify what we say. We always put the sources down below. Yeah. Right? So yeah, it's some people in the space, man, they're sharks and they're just in it for themselves. And unfortunately, a lot of YouTubers and a lot of, without naming any names, Twitter personalities are guilty of this, unfortunately. And it just sucks. And I know he has a very popular YouTube channel as well. Yep. Right? So, it's a bummer, I guess, but and this really highlights what we've been saying, and this is why we don't speculate. We don't talk about where the price. We don't give you price predictions. We don't give you, hey, buy this shitcoin's gonna make you the next millionaire. If you want to grow on YouTube very quickly, that is what you do. You literally curtail your content to people's hopium, people's hopes and dreams. There's a lot of people suffering in this world. When you give them an easy way out, is the key word, they're going to take it. Bitcoin, it's not an easy way out. It requires proof of work. It requires understanding. It requires commitment. I believe it's basically a guarantee, right? If you hold Bitcoin for a certain amount of time, right? Of course, you can never plan for catastrophic events or a coordinated worldwide government ban, but when the fuck have governments ever coordinated on something, right? You think the US and Russia are going to coordinate together? Like, no. Like, but it's like, that's what it would take to stop something like Bitcoin. But again, you can't foresee the future. But in terms of NGU technology, number go up technology is going to do its thing. I have no doubt in my mind, right? So the question that you should be asking yourself is, do you have high time preference? Are you trying to get rich quickly overnight? Because that's what those channels will give you. They'll say, hey, this is the next shitcoin. You buy this and you become the next millionaire. With Bitcoin, it takes a couple years of hodling and believing. It takes 4 years to be comfortable in Bitcoin. It takes 8 years to get wealthy relative to where you started, right? 8 fucking years. That's a commitment. That's understanding, right? It's going to take less time than that to get comfortable, but it really takes 8 years to get wealthy compared to where you started, right? Yeah. And of course, the price goes up, right? So, the gains that were there in the first 2 years of Bitcoin, it's a lot harder to 2x now that we're at 40K, right? So it doesn't mean that Bitcoin isn't going to go to the fucking moon and beyond. It might just take longer, especially now that we're in the big leagues and governments and nation states and companies are getting into the fray. Things are getting a lot more hairy. And another last thing I wanted to say before I shut up is another component is, do you want to get rich, or do you want to free mankind from the tyranny of central banking? The awesome part about one option and the other is that one option, right, the shitcoins, you could be that 1 in 1,000 person that gets rich off shitcoins. You could be it, right? You could win the lottery. It happens, right? Or the second option, right, is, joining the peaceful revolution, right, is you will get wealthier. It will just take a little bit longer because Bitcoin technology does this thing. It's NGU technology. There's a capped supply in the amount of Bitcoin. There's a halving every 4 years. There's 8 billion people on the planet. That number keeps on growing, but there's only 21 million Bitcoin. It's estimated that 3 or 4 are lost, right? So there's really 17 million Bitcoin or 16 million Bitcoin or 17 or 18 million Bitcoin. Do the math. It's very fucking easy math, right? What's the Newt Savholm? He has that awesome picture, 21 million divided by infinity. That's what I'm talking about, right? It's like that's the math here. It's very simple math, right? Anyways, those are my thoughts on this. Like, again, it's depressing, but I'm not surprised. But anyways, Phil, it's time for
the Daily Meme Review.
Brought to you by Citadel 21. They are the best Bitcoin cultural zine, stories, articles, comics, by actual Bitcoiners. This is the artwork for Volume 10, and this is the artwork for Volume 11. It just came out. And they're scarce. There's only 1,000 copies made per volume. Get your prints of Citadel 21 today before they run out. All right, everybody, first meme is brought to us by Naive Cat, and he makes, or he or she, or they, nowadays, makes some awesome memes, right? Bitcoin fixes this. Problem stuck in the mud, can't proceed. Obvious solution, corporate solution, right?
And this is totally accurate.
Bitcoin fixes this. This is accurate as hell. Phil, you worked in a big corporation. Could you explain this a little bit?
Okay, yeah. So essentially what ends up happening, right, is that because the thing is that you could only move so much talent. So what ends up happening is that they promote people into positions that don't really need to exist, such as the 5 people whipping the horse to get out, when really what you needed were the 3 horses to get out. You didn't need the 5 people. So this is a perfect example of how it becomes top heavy.
Yep. And Bitcoin really does fix this. And when it becomes top heavy, the incentives become misaligned, right? Because it's more so people watching out for their paycheck. Anyways, which I believe is the problem with government. Bitcoin meme library, shout out to Swan team, buy Bitcoin for salvation. Let's check it out. We got to zoom in a little bit. traveling abroad, luxury, dining, nice vacation, emergency fund, payoff debt, starting a business, home ownership, starting a family, buying a vehicle, student loan debt, this is so true. This is a very
really
deep
well
meme.
done.
And
Yeah.
the Bitcoin escalate, dude. And this is what I was talking about during the whatever. Here's the thing with shitcoins is that they'll give you the illusion that all these things that you could overcome, you could do it in the next year. You could do it in the next 2 years. All you got to do is to make the right trades, right? But nothing's guaranteed in life, but there is something with high probability. I wouldn't say guarantee, almost guarantee that if you hodl Bitcoin over time, you will be able to achieve things if you work hard. You work hard in your job and you save enough money, but instead of saving and leaving that money in fiat where it actually loses value over time, you put it in Bitcoin, which is literally designed to go up, right? Moving on to the next one. It's by P2P, a fellow pleb. This is how Bitcoin hodler looks like. Remember how I told you it was the long way? I'm going to keep referencing what I said during the fail. I told you, what I said sounds easy, but it's not. The 50% and over corrections are extremely difficult, especially in the first year. First year or two, right? You put in 10, 20 grand, right? Money's relative. It could be a lot for you. It could be a little, right? And that 10, 20 grand, or let's say 10 grand loses 50% of its value. And here's the thing, and you buy more after losing percent, that's what happens to you. That's what you end up looking like. It's very painful. I've been through those downturns. Phil, I know you've been through those downturns. But the good news is that after you survive a cycle, even though you might be on a downturn, you're still up to when you started, significantly up. Moving on, the next one, by the legendary BTC Pins. Shout out Optimus, I love these. Template Tuesdays, and here is Phil, and who did this to my notepad. It's only near mint. And for anyone who doesn't understand, Phil loves things in mint. I use things, so I get stickers, I put them on the wall. Phil keeps them in mint. So it's absolutely hilarious. All right, moving on to the next one by Just Hodl. There is $2.1 billion here, or 21 million $100 bills. That means in this picture, there is one $100 bill for every Bitcoin in existence. This tower is a picture of 1 trillion or 100 billion, right? Compared to where the thing started. This is 1 quadrillion, right? All these buildings. 1 quadrillion is how many Shiba Inu tokens exist. You would need 10 of these cities to have 100 billion for every Shiba Inu token. There are literally 19,000 cryptocurrencies with over a decillion tokens among them. Only 20 million of them actually matter. And this is essentially what I've been saying. This is what I said at the end of the fail set. Next meme is by Gigglesma. Let's check it out. My setup, it's a tank blown up. Me preaching about Bitcoin security and self-custody. That's not true for me, but yeah, my shit is a fucking giant tank, all right? I
Don't preach.
tell
people, Nico.
I say what I preach, all right?
Let them be curious.
No, dude.
You never say anything, so people don't know what to expect, and then they show up.
Seed storage is very fucking important. All right, I take it very seriously. All right, moving on to this one, Winekiss. We're just 8 standard deviations within stock to flow model. Plan B, stock to flow still on track. The track. Shout out Corey. That's one for you, bro. All right. Next one. Happy birthday, Hal Finney. That's right. Hal Finney, the first person that received a Bitcoin transaction. No, sorry, the first person to run Bitcoin, first public figure to run Bitcoin other than Satoshi. He unfortunately passed away from a terrible, terrible disease. You're a legend, and I know you are watching us and watching what has happened. So yeah, man, extremely sad, but I had to mention it when we record the episode. So today is his birthday. You guys are going to see it the next day, just in case some of you get confused. You're like, it was yesterday. That's why. Anyways, Phil, while I look for my score, why don't you give your score first?
Yeah, so I just want to say before I give the score, I tweeted this out. We stand on the shoulders of giants, and Hal is one of those giants.
Yep. What score?
I will give it. Well, I didn't give it the score yet. I'm digging. Okay, here we go. I'm giving it. This little lightning flame sticker that I got from one of the places at the Bitcoin conference.
Little lightning flame sticker, and I will give it 2 Lucio Paletti Better Money stickers. I love his Satoshi mask. It's so unique. It's the Guy Fawkes mask, but with the Bitcoin, I think the eyes are a little bit more slanted and mysterious.
When will he make physical ones like this? I'm a sucker. Come on.
Physical,
the guy,
like
the Bitcoin thing in the middle.
Like a sculpture. Oh, that's a good question.
Not even a sculpture, but like you can wear it.
We should invite him on the show, and you should. I'm gonna give you a layup so you could ask him that question directly.
I know that him and a gentleman named Clay made these little metallic ones. It took them almost 2 years or something like that. But making an actual reproduction that people can wear, I think that. I mean, I'd have to get 2, right? One that I can wear and one to keep in mint, of course.
And one in mint.
Saying.
No, but you can't do that. You have to get more than 2. I think your ideal number was 6, right?
So, yeah, eventually you get into these situations where you require more of them in case there might be an issue. But essentially, you can get away with 3 of them, right? You have one that you wear, you have 2 that keep in mint. That way, maybe one day you sell one, but you always have one in mint.
One in mint. This is very important. But anyways, guys, we want to know if you agree with our score, disagree. Let us know down in the comments section. And of course, make sure to subscribe to us on alternative video platforms for obvious reasons, like rumble.com and our personal favorite, bitcointv.com. They don't censor there because it's Bitcoin TV. And join our Telegram group where you can link us some dank Bitcoin memes to review. It's a party in there. Join our Telegram group. Don't forget. But anyways, Phil, it's time for
the Daily News.
Brought to you by CryptoCloaks.com. They make some of the best Bitcoin merch, like the famous 3D printed Bitcoin art sculpture. Opens up, you put your favorite hardware wallet in there. Also comes in any custom color your heart desires, and the famous 3D printed Bitcoin honey badger also opens up, and this comes in 3 different sizes. You can get all this on CryptoCloaks.com, and you can take advantage of the link down below to get 5% off. All right, everybody, so check this out. This is not signal. This is noise, but it could become signal. Check this out. The president of Mexico is going to have an official state visit with Nayib Bukele. And the reason I say this might be signal is because BJ Ditcher came on the show with one of the Canadian freedom fighters, one of the truckers, and he mentioned that one of the next countries was going to be Mexico. And I also heard that from other sources. So, right, and we also have a Mexican senator that is openly advocating for Bitcoin, and she said at the conference that she was going to put a Bitcoin bill on the president's desk. Could this be it? I don't know. Let's see what happens. Anyways, moving on to the actual signal, because that was a little bit of noise. I just thought it was exciting. Today, the Fed lifts interest rates by 0.5%, and to launch sell-off of $9 trillion bond stockpile in June. Now, here's the thing. I'm calling bullshit. And for anyone who doesn't know, essentially is the Fed has this mechanism where they raise and lower rates to stimulate or to slow down the economy. What they're trying to do with the bond sell-off and the interest rate raises is they're trying to slow inflation. However, we've had a theory, and let's see how this plays off. We're not credentialed economists, but so far we've been awfully more right than those so-called credentialed economists, especially when it comes... Nowadays it doesn't, but we've been a lot more right than those so-called credentialed economists, especially when it came to the topic of inflation. While those credentialed economists were saying that inflation was transitory, that it was the supply chains, we pride ourselves that we were one of, all of the Bitcoin community really, but, the non-blue check marks that actually got it spot on. And the reason we knew that is because they're printing a record amount of money. Clearly, that looks very toxic politically for the Biden administration. So this is the Fed's attempt at slowing down that inflation. Anyways, the reason I don't believe that is possible is let's look at history, shall we? this is the Fed's balance sheet, right? And to give you guys a little bit of a refresher, essentially the mechanism on which the Fed uses to justify the printing of money is instead of just printing, right? What they do is to make it kosher on the books is the Fed doesn't just print. What they do is the government issues bonds, right? And then in an ideal world, the free market would buy those bonds. But in the clown world that we're fucking living in, the Fed buys those bonds themselves. And where do those bonds go? They put it on the balance sheet, right? So this experiment really started in 2008, 2009. And as you can see, it's gone absolutely bonkers. Now, they tried slowing this down during the end of the Trump administration, and that caused the repo market crisis. Don't confuse that with the reverse repo market crisis, which is currently happening right now. It caused the first repo market crisis, and what did they have to do? They had to reverse it, and then COVID hit and they just went absolutely insane, right? And what they're saying, what they would like you to believe, right? What the Fed would like you to believe with this minuscule rate hike, right? Is that they could slow this down. Guys, don't believe me. Look at the chart yourself. Do you really think they're going to slow this down? Look, they started with less than $1 trillion in 2009. We are sitting at $9 trillion. 9! 9! Anyways, moving on before I get your points, Phil. Now, let's look at the history of the Federal Reserve rates, right? This goes back all the way to the 1970s, 1980s. Now, this is the last time historically the United States has had this level of inflation. Now, the reason that we believe, right, that they're not going to be able to stop this Ponzi, they're not going to be able to stop the money printing is back then, look how much leeway Volcker, which was the head of the Federal Reserve, and Reagan as president, had to kind of look how many tools they had. The rates went all the way up to 20%. 20%. 20, right? So they had a lot of maneuvering power, right? Today, look at rates. They've basically been at zero. And that 0.5% means 0.5. 0.5. This went all the way up to 20. So this is what they would like you to believe, that somehow they could reverse that, right? They're wanting you to believe, hey, we're stopping the money printing, we're reversing the trend, but if you look at the trend's never fucking reversed. And this is the most powerful tool the Fed has in its arsenal. They have the interest rate, but they don't have maneuvering power. So this goes back to something that Phil and I have been talking about. And just to give you guys a little bit of a refresher, if the Fed stops printing money, they crash the economy. If they keep printing money, the economy somewhat survives until it doesn't, but inflation goes through the roof. My prediction is they're going to reverse this as soon as the economy starts to get into a little bit of a pickle. And if you want to add a little bit more into the mix, the US had a negative GDP growth this month. So think about it. The US had a negative GDP growth, and on that month, the Fed decides to raise rates, which means it's essentially cooling down the economy in the hope of slowing down inflation. Fucking disaster, right? But this is why Bitcoin exists. If you want to opt out of this fucking clown world, I suspect it's going to get a lot nastier. Just buy some Bitcoin, right? At the end of the day, look, I'm not going to go and say that high inflation is a good thing, because it hurts a lot of people, and I don't feel that way, right? But if you hold Bitcoin, kind of doesn't matter that much. Just saying. Anyways, Phil, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, you're exactly right. You know, you insulate yourself with Bitcoin. This is exactly it. Okay, just a couple of points. So going back to what you said at the beginning, right? The Fed doesn't just print money. The Fed pretends to buy bonds. So this is what it is. It's pretend. Okay, yes, we understand they're buying these bonds, but these bonds of what? What is this? They're not buying anything. They're just printing money. They're injecting it into the system, and then they tell you a story. They tell us a story. Okay. And we want to believe this story because we've been putting all of our money, right? We've been putting, all of our value and our time into this story. So we have something called sunk cost bias into this story, right? We have to believe it. You know, most people have been working for years based on this narrative, so they have no choice. Okay, the other point I want to make is this. If the Fed brought the interest rates up to 20%, that would destroy the economy, destroy it in ways that people can't even imagine. Okay, we have said, and I shouldn't say we have said, but on even on corporate-owned media, you see that the average American can't afford a $400 emergency. That's a $400 emergency today. We're not even talking about hyperinflation. Right now, we're being fooled into thinking that inflation isn't even increasing. Right? Before it was transitory, now it's necessary. You know, the goalposts are gonna keep moving, but a 20% rate hike like what happened in the 1980s would be completely unheard of. And the third point that I want to make is this. I can't put it past the Fed to do something incredibly stupid in order to be seen as the hero, right? Remember, this is it's not unusual. You know, you create a problem and you provide the solution. Correct. You know, maybe it doesn't seem like we created the problem, but hey, look, here we are with a solution that involves us staying in power and us creating more money and you losing a little bit of something else.
Bingo. Oh, look, these rate hikes are way too dangerous. We need another stimulus package in order to jumpstart the economy. Because at the end of the day, all these people know how to do is print more money. They might hide behind all the fanciness and the technicalities, but unfortunately for them, these two plebs figured out their scheme. So we're able to explain it. Sucks for them. Isn't the internet wonderful? So another attack vector. Check this out, guys. And Nico did some digging, Phil. Check this out. You ready for your blood to boil?
Is it Nico Jones time?
No, because it's not that much conspiracy. It's not so conspiracy. I'm not making a prediction. It's just, look, I found the receipts. So EU Commissioner is calling for global regulators to create a unified crypto regulation. Why do they need global regulators? Because when people opt out, right? So what do they need? They need collusion between worldwide governments, which I believe is impossible, right? To essentially have a combined effort, a combined front when it comes to use Christine Lagarde's own words, to stem the flow, right? To shut off that escape valve, which is what her actual words are. But check this out, Phil. The European Union Commissioner for Financial Services, Stability and Capital Markets, Mairead McGuinness, calls for unified crypto regulation. Now, here's the scary part. Remember that name, Mairead McGuinness. And this is a tweet from 2001, July 2001. And we actually covered this when it came out. Let's see what she had to say. Cryptocurrency is one of the newest ways to launder money. Our rules will now apply to the whole of the crypto sector. We will ban anonymous crypto wallets and make sure that crypto asset transfers are traceable. I'm going to read it again. We will ban anonymous crypto wallets. Now let's go back to this news, which is current, right? EU Commissioner is calling for global regulators to create a unified crypto regulation. Now do you understand? We are simply Bitcoin is right once again. We've been telling you guys, they're going to go after self-custody. Don't allow them to frame it, because their frame is anonymous crypto wallets. That means self-custody, right? So you have a lady who's openly on Twitter called for banning of an anonymous crypto wallets, also known as self-custody, also realizing the fact that, holy crap, if we don't ban self-custody on a worldwide level, this ban is just going to hurt us, and it's not going to achieve the things that we want it to achieve, right? So, again, these central planners are absolutely having a meltdown, which, if you connect it with what Joe Rogan said in the beginning of the show, this is why. This is why, right? And this is them melting down. I don't believe they're going to be successful, but that doesn't mean they're not going to try. And the only way you protect yourself is by taking Bitcoin into self-custody, and privacy is important. So definitely learn how to run your own node. If you don't want to learn how to run your own node, you could always buy a nodl. They do it for you. Anyways, Phil, what are your thoughts on this?
Okay, you know what? As you were reading that tweet thread, all I could think of is this: banning anonymous crypto wallets is the same difference as you are not allowed to carry cash. Simple as that. Because let's face it, that's what it is. Cash is, look, as much as like we dump on this, right? Cash is the last vestige of free speech. You and I can interact with cash. There's no intermediary or anything like that. It's an agreed upon medium of exchange. Sure, it's issued by the government, and yes, the government can devalue it, but at the end of the day, you and I can do a transaction between us and they can't stop it. Whereas that's what I see with this. This is why they want to do it, right? Banning anonymous wallets is saying no more cash. And what we've said before and what you've said before, right? That's the banning of free speech.
Yep,
This is what they want. This is exactly what they want. They want controlled free speech. It's not even free speech, it's just controlled speech.
It's controlled speech. And that's what but I'm glad, Phil, is that the mainstream is starting to wake up to that, which is why you have, and I can't emphasize the importance of this, guys. Joe Rogan has a giant bipartisan audience, right? So when you hear that man talk about something, it is seeping into mainstream consciousness. Millions of people are waking up to the fact that perhaps these central bank digital currencies are a terrible idea. Perhaps we should be separating money from state because we don't have another option, right? So again, I think that if they started this plan as soon as Bitcoin was released, maybe, right? But I think that by the time they roll this out, right, and we actually covered an article by Yellen, is anticipated by 2025, 2026. And GU technology is already going to do its thing. More countries are going to have it legal tender. I think it's going to be too little, too late. And on top of that, right, since the infrastructure bill, Bitcoiners have mobilized politically in the United States, and now they've have, I think it's 2 or 3 very well-funded Bitcoin-only PACs, right? So again, to try to achieve something politically is going to be very costly for whatever politician wants to move that forward. So again, dude, maybe Europe, maybe, right? Which is kind of the birth of central banking. So there's kind of it's a little, you know, I guess they have the longest tradition of it, right? So maybe they're going to fight till the end, but the United States and Canada, will you see with Pierre Poilievre, or did I pronounce his name correctly, Phil? I'm sorry. Pierre
Poilievre.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So, I don't think that the central bankers and their allies, the politicians that benefit from all that printing of money, I don't think they'll be able to get their way in the US and Canada. In Europe, it really looks like they're heading in that direction, right? Anyways, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, this is a really tough call, right? I want to imagine that the incentives will align. The incentives of Bitcoin will get people to see that by doing what's right for themselves as individuals will end up being what is correct for society. This is what I want to believe. Unfortunately, I'm just afraid that that's not really what's going to happen. To your point about Europe, okay, look, I this is going to sound awful. I think that a lot of regions are a little too far gone. And I think that, unfortunately, there's most likely going to be a bit of a battle, right? That takes place over there. Look, Canada's kind of like it's a bit of a tough call. There's quite a few pockets of resistance that I've seen, but I've also seen blatant. I don't even know what to call. I don't even know what to use for it. But just the throwing up your hands and just saying, okay, yeah, I'll just do what you say so I can move to the next step. Yeah. And that's really scary. And I think that when it comes to these types of regulations, look, if there's anything I've ever seen, okay, once an organization puts regulation in place and creates these types of structures, they do not get undone easily. Not without. So think of it like this, okay? It took a certain amount of force to create it. It's going to take 10 times that amount of force to undo it.
Yep.
Okay.
And it has to be peaceful. It has to be peaceful. Right.
Of course.
I can't emphasize that enough, because if it's violent, right, that gives them the excuse to clamp down. So this has to be a 100% peaceful revolution, which Bitcoin completely enables, to just opt out, right? That's what it's about, right? But anyways, awesome kibitz. If you know, you know. But anyways, there was an open source software release today. Why don't you tell everybody about it?
Software releases brought to you by CipherSafe. Check them out, cyphersafe.io, the most secure, safest way to store your seed. Told you, don't store it on paper. Store your seed in the Cypher Wheel or the all-new Cypher Grid. They both come with a tamper-resistant wire, but the grid also comes with a punch tool. All right, we've got MyCitadel Wallet version 1.0 that was released. It's down below in the show notes. Don't forget to check us out on our audio-only platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. If you want to stream us sats, Fountain.fm, you can stream them through Breeze.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil. All right, guys, that was our show. Before we go, I'm going to give a very quick shout out to our awesome clothing sponsor, RepresentLTD.com. Phil and I wear the hoodies every single day. Super high quality clothing. Check them out. And they came out with Bitcoin merch. They're going to come out with more and Simply Bitcoin merch soon. And you can take advantage of the promo code down below to get 10% off anything off the RepresentLTD.com store. Guys, that was the show. If you enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash that like button. It really helps us with the mysterious YouTube algorithm. And of course, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you want to hear more daily fails and catastrophic fails and more Bitcoin news. Guys, we'll see you on the next one. My brain's all over the place today.
Command your time, own your value, choose Bitcoin.
Bye, Akasha.